I remember lizards on my wall, on the ceiling. I remember how startlingly green everything was, and if it wasn't jungle, it was red, gold, and orange. I remember the comfort of humidity and the bronze sounds of a distant gamelan. The smell of white plumeria clings to my skin and is the sense I most connect with home. The problem is, that home isn't mine. When I was in second grade in Maryland, my mother overheard something I had been telling teachers and friends. Startled, she gently set me straight. "Nana love," she said, "we're not from Indonesia. You were born in Boston, and then we moved to Bali a few months later. But my family and you and I, we're Filipina." The revelation shook me. I had never been to the Philippines. I couldn't speak the language, Tagalog, but Indonesian words swirled around the conversations in my home. The sounds still triggered meanings in my head, as steeped in them as I had been until the age of 3. My name, Ariana, even comes from the Indonesian name Ariani. But now I had lost Indonesia without gaining the Philippines. I was left with nothing but the irrelevance of brown skin, black hair, and an American accent. Perversely and practically, I adopted different nationalities when I traveled, and my ethnic camouflage became an odd point of pride. But I wistfully thought ahead to that time when a plane would take me to that other archipelago in the Pacific, the one that my mother and grandmother remembered, where I had cousins who I'd never met, and where, at last, my face could truly be lost in the crowd. I arrived in Manila for the first time in the summer of 2012, flying just ahead of a monsoon that would flood most of the city. Manila was glittery, and like the parts of Asia I had already seen, was at once decaying and soaring towards the sky. It was my mother's grand homecoming, but we could barely leave the hotel as the downpour in the muddy bay slowly reclaimed civilization. I watched on TV and ordered more room service. Our cousins came to visit, inundating us with joyful tears and hugging, and endless food. "And this is Ariana," they said, turning from my mother to me. "She takes after her father so much. A Western face. Not very Filipina," it was decided. The last time I was in Indonesia, I felt the gravity of my mother's dancing footsteps. She had arrived 20 years before to study Balinese dance and perform throughout the islands. Her influence overlay my trip, and I could never tell if I was seeing my Bali or hers. It seemed too small an island to be both. Just before I was set to fly home, I went to stay with my mother's former dance teachers, who had been like family to her. I felt a small awkwardness unpacking in a house I didn't know, though they welcomed me like a long-absent daughter. It didn't make sense until I noticed an old photograph on the wall. I'd never seen it before. I recognized it immediately. It was me, and I was Indonesian.